I'm here with BlackVeilBrides guitarist Jinxx. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Victoria?
I'm doing good. So, ReStitch These Wounds comes out next Friday. How excited are you guys to be releasing this?
Very excited. Yeah, we've been working on this for a while, for the past year really, and actually it was kind of a concept we had going back to 2013, and originally we recorded this on a shoestring budget, and we just kind of called in some favors, and we did it for just pocket change basically, and originally, and we just we're never happy with the way it sounded. The production was pretty rough, and and we've learned a lot along the way, as far as production and everything. And it's like, well, we can just produce it ourselves and record vocals and stuff in Jake's studio. Jake can, produce the record. And anyway, we just decided that these songs really needed to breathe and sound the way that we imagined them originally. And now we have the chance, and so we've spent the last year doing just that. And we're really proud of the way it turned out. So we're really excited for people to hear it now.
Yeah, and you guys have been going for 10 years. So what's it like? How do you feel like you've improved throughout this 10 years?
Oh man, loads. 10 years ago, I was already, at the time I considered myself somewhat of a seasoned veteran as far as touring, with playing with touring bands, and I'd been on the scene for, a number of years, I'd already toured Europe and everything, so I felt like I had a little bit of edge on the other guys, but, I was still pretty green, I have to say, as far as, what I was going to expect for the next 10 years. Things just kind of took off right off the bat, and it's just been an exciting ride, but definitely learned a lot, and improved on my skills as far as orchestrating and composing. I've had many opportunities, especially when we got to Wretched Divine, and I was doing a lot of orchestration on that album. Since then, I've scored a couple films, and I feel like my skills in that respect have really magnified compared to where I was at 10 years ago.
Yeah, and do you have a favorite song that you recorded off ReStitch These Wounds?
So I'm really excited for people to hear Mortician's Daughter, which I've made into Overture 3. And it's all instrumental. People have been asking, oh, well, you're doing like a version with vocals and a version that's just instrumental, or how's it going to go, or is it going to be like Overture 2, where it's, the end of Dead Men Walking? And, the answer to that, no, it's only instrumental. And the reason for that, Andy approached me with it. He said, well, I don't want to sing this song anymore. The original was very special, and it was about somebody who was special to me in my life at that time. It's no longer in my life now, and it just doesn't seem appropriate for me to sing that song anymore. I have the same feelings, and the original is special in its own, and it's time to put the song to rest. And what better way to do it than do a beautiful rendition of it? And the same way he asked me to make Overture 3 out of it. And oh man, it's I have to say I pulled out of the stops on this one. I'm always trying to up my game a little bit as far as the overtures or my orchestration. And so with this one, you just have to hear it. It subtly starts with piano, and then it just builds from there. And I feel like I'm really proud of this one. It's pretty epic. So can't wait for people to hear it and hear what they think.
Yeah, and like you said before, you've done lots of cool orchestrations on a bunch of your albums that you guys have made. Do you have an album that was most fun to you to record?
Most fun to record? See, that's kind of a tricky question, because they all had their high points, and then they all had their, where it was just like kind of a learning curve. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun recording all the albums. But I'd have to say where I learned the most was when we recorded Wretched and Divine. And, to be honest, it wasn't exactly an easy process at first. We went into the studio with John Feldman for the first time, and none of us were very familiar with his MO, how he works. And, previously, Jake and we would demo songs out musically, and then give it to Andy, and he would, write a vocal melody over the top. So with Wretched, it was completely different. I walked in the studio, and John Feldman, it's like he'd never really, I mean, I don't know, it's like he'd never really heard our music before, or he just didn't, we approached him, like Jake and I had said, hey, we have some demos for the next record, and he's just like, yeah, I can't write vocal melody over that, so I'm going to write your songs. And he would just, like, play the piano and hum the melody over it. I'm like, does this guy even know what our band is? But, obviously, what we turned out with that record was just something that we're, all very proud of, and it was just a different process for us. And, of course, as time went on, we learned to work with each other and make the most epic thing that we've had to date at that point. And, obviously looking back and seeing John Feldman's process and everything, and then we went and did another record with him with Veil. He's a great guy to work with, and of course we're great friends now and everything, and we're very proud of what he's accomplished with him. But it was definitely a learning process for all of us, especially me and Jake. So I have to say, like, I don't know, I had a lot of fun with that, what I learned, and I got to do a lot of that on my own. I recorded all the strings and everything actually in this house that I'm just moving out of. So there's a room in this house. I did all the violins, all the strings, and on all the records since then in this house. So yeah.
Yeah. What about most challenging album to record?
Wretched and Divine.
Yeah, same thing.
Because like I say, Jake and I had a process that we were comfortable with, and working with Feldy, he just totally took us out of our comfort zone, and that was very difficult. And it was, for us, we were kind of set in our ways, and he's set in his ways. We're butting heads right off the bat, and it was definitely a struggle. But like I say, in the end, no pun intended. Very, very proud of what we came up with there. So. Yeah.
And what about, what are some of your favorite BlackVeilBrides songs that you guys have made?
I mean, that's a tough one. It's like choosing your favorite children, and when you have, a roster of 80 songs that we've written or covered, man, it's tough. Like, which of my 80 children? But let's see. Obviously, In the End's been our biggest song to date, and that was an interesting song to write, because that song started off completely on a different foot than where it ended up. It started in Feldy's studio, and I was in my studio in this house here, and I was recording. I was probably working on Overture or something like that, which I did in 3 days. But I was starting on that, I think, and Jake was at his house in his apartment in Hollywood at the time, and then he was working on guitars there, and so we're all kind of separated. But Andy was in the studio with Feldy, and I just got a phone call as Andy is like, "Hey man, Jinxx, I believe we were at before my phone got too hot in the casino sun." I was talking about the process with making In the End. You asked me what the most the funnest songs to record.
Yeah.
But I just have an interesting story about doing In the End. So I think where I left off, I was saying how Andy called me. He was in the studio with Feldy, and Jake was in his studio at his house. I was in my studio at my house here. And Andy was like, "Hey, Jinxx, I need to come down to the studio. You're the closest one to the studio. I need your help. The song, it's just not going well." Basically, Feldy and I think he had another writer there. It was just they were working on trying to write our #1 hit, basically. But I don't know what the concept was at first, or it wasn't a Black Veil song. It wasn't. I don't know what it was. And Andy kind of hummed me some lyrics of what anyway, long story short, it just was not going well. And but by the time I got to the studio, he's like, "Yeah, bring your violin." And I brought my violin, and by the time I got there, it was starting to kind of turn out a little better. There was a little bit more structure, and so I don't know what was going on before I got there, but it just was a completely different song, and just not anything you would ever expect from us, and just not good. So by the time I got there, I was like, okay, all right, I hear what's going on here, and I laid down the intro part, my violin, and it turned into In the End. But it just, in the beginning, it just was not anything close to what ended up. So and then it ended up becoming our biggest song. So it's sometimes with songwriting, it's like you never know. You can, pardon the expression, but like you feel like you're beating a dead horse. You know, you start with an idea, and then if the idea just doesn't pan out, you sometimes might have to just leave it and come back to it. Sometimes you think, oh, I have this great idea, and for like a riff, like songs, can start with a riff or with a vocal melody or just a concept, lyric concept, and you just work it out until you get it. Sometimes when you have other writers in the room too, they might have an idea that's just completely oddball, and you're just like, can we just not use that idea?
Yeah.
Can we just go back to how we know how to write our own songs? And anyway, that's why we all work well together, and sometimes with outside writers, not so much. But anyway, long story short, many other songs I've had a lot of fun recording. Overture, the first Overture, Andy approached me about that one. He's like, for this concept record we're doing, Wretched and Divine, I would like you to do, I don't know, we're going to call it Overture. You take like 4 melodies from the song, like whatever our biggest songs we think are going to be, or whatever, just it's kind of a representation of the whole album. And it's just like a minute-long orchestral piece, and it's kind of like a medley of the big melodies from the record. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm up to that challenge. And I think, I spent like a day just kind of like sketching it out roughly, and then I started recording it one day, and then the next day or whatever, and then by the next morning, I had it done, and I stayed up all night and just recorded it, and it went to Feldy's the next day with it, and just handed it in. I'm like, here you go. I was no sleep. I just worked on it until it was done, and that, I don't know, it was a lot of fun. Because I just was working on it by myself, and I was able to just kind of use my own imagination. It's been like that with the other overtures too, and so I have a lot of fun doing those. And but as far as other songs we've been having fun doing, I have to say the recent stuff that we've been working on that's going to be on the new record coming up is, I have to say, we're having a lot of fun writing this new material. We're all just like really excited. We feel like we're hungry again, like we were 10 years ago. Sometimes when you're going in to write a record, for us, it was like, for a while there, especially when we signed with Universal, they would have us on tour, and then it was back in the studio doing an album straight away. No time off. No, it was just like tour, studio, tour, tour album, and so we didn't really have a lot of time to regroup or just kind of spend a little time away from each other. We just got exhausted after so many years of that, and especially by the time we got to Vail, it was just like, that's why we took a little more time on that one, because we're just like, man, we're tired, we're exhausted, and just got to be, and I think we all kind of, I don't know, it isn't that we drifted away from each other or anything like that, but it's just like you kind of need time off from each other when you're spending so much time together. And anyway, a long story short, we're now at a point where we're all on the same page in the band, and we all get along really well, and we're all having so much fun writing these new songs that I have to say the new stuff is the most fun I think I've ever had in this band writing music. So yeah.
And when you guys first started as a band, like when you released We Stitch These Wounds, you guys took off pretty fast. So did you ever have an exact moment where you knew that the band was going to be big, like it was going to be a big thing?
Oh, I knew it before any of that. When I first really when I got Jake involved in the band, he was kind of unsure at first, and I'm like, dude, you just got to trust me. There's something here, and you're not going to regret it. Just give it a shot with me. And I think with the two of us in this band, with Andy, we're going to be unstoppable. I knew Andy had a great concept for the band, and his I was really impressed with him at first. He was very young, but he just had this goal, and he was like dead set on attaining that goal. And I'm like, wow, that's I just knew that it was going to be something huge. And the first tour we did, the On Leather Wings tour, we all hopped in a SUV with a U-Haul trailer and just went across country, and we played these rooms that I had played with my previous band. I was in this band, The Dreaming, before Black Veil, and we couldn't even fill those rooms. And the first show we played was in Cleveland, this place called Peabody's, and we were playing the like 80 cap room that I played with my previous band, and we couldn't fill that. We had like 40 people in that room when I played there with the Dreaming, and when we showed up with Black Veil, there were 450 people lined up to get into this tiny little 80 cap room, and
wow.
they had a main stage room that was like, I think 1,200 cap, maybe not even that much. No, it was more like 400 or 500, I think. Yeah, not even less than that. But that was the main stage, and they were having some battle of the bands there that was booked in that room, and they had maybe 20 people for that battle of the bands, and we had 450 people show up, and so it was insane. And I looked at Jake, and he just looked at me. He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Huh? Yeah." I was like, "Okay, all right." He's like, "Yep, all right." And then the next day, we went to his parents' house, and we all got these tattoos for the tour. And Jake got tattooed with us. Like, "Guess you're in the band now." It's like, "Yep, I guess so." But yeah, we knew it was going to be big. And the thing is, just the whole when we were just starting off, we were trying to look larger than life. Like, we were trying to put on an arena-sized show in these tiny rooms, tiny stages that we were playing. We had this kabuki curtain in front of us that we dropped. We were our own techs. We didn't, couldn't afford techs or anything. We weren't in a bus. We were, first tours, we were in a van, and, driving ourselves around the country. And, it's like you just kind of, do the best you can with what you have to work with. But we put on an arena-sized show, and with what we had to work with, and it was just a matter of time before that was going to reach the arenas, which within like a year's time we were opening for Avenged Sevenfold in arenas. So I think right from the beginning I knew it was going to be big. Like I say, I was already kind of a seasoned pro at that point. At least I considered myself at that point. So a bit seasoned, and I had played festivals in Europe with previous bands, and so it's like I saw the potential, and I was like, yeah, this band's going to be there before you know it, and it was. So
yeah. And when did you decide that you wanted to be in a band? Like, when did you decide that was what you wanted to do with your life?
Well, it wasn't really a decision, really. I grew up in a house where everyone was a musician. My parents both played. My brother played bands. My dad always had bands. And I was just I was born into it. There was a PA system in the house, and drums and bands playing all the time. And, MTV was on 24/7. Back when they played music videos, I'm like dating myself here. It was a long time ago. MTV actually was music television. I actually played music videos. But anyway, and it was rock and roll, So it was just inevitable. I think originally I wanted to be an archaeologist or a paleontologist, So, but that didn't work out, so I had to settle for being a rock star, I guess. But, facetious. But no, it wasn't a decision, really. It was just, okay, this is what I'm doing. But I played in some bands in high school. I wasn't really like a popular kid or anything. I found some guys that were some other misfits like me, and we had fun jamming together, and we would play like talent shows and stuff. And I think it was like where I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa. There was this band Slipknot that just blew up, right?
Yeah.
And I was still in high school, and they got signed, and I remember seeing them. I would go to this place called Harry Mary's, where you could probably barely pack maybe 50 people in there, and they would play this tiny little stage, and all their masks and everything, and it would just be packed in there. And then next thing I know, they're playing like local festivals and stuff, and then they were signed, and then it was just like, holy crap, these guys did it. Like, to me, it was like when you're from Iowa, you're told that you can have those dreams, but be realistic. And I always hated that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, be realistic. Get a job. Get married and start a family right out of high school. And, just get a good job so you can work your way up the ladder in like a corporation. And that was it. That was just like, that or that. There's no other outside. It's like the people that escaped like for me, I had to move far away. I moved to the West Coast because I was like, I can't find like-minded people who, you know, shoot for the stars and actually make it happen.
Yeah.
And so that's why I got out of there. I mean, it was like Slipknot was, to me, like the only band to ever make it out of Iowa. And so anyway, when that happened, I was just like, well, I want to do that. So what do I have to do? And you know, I moved to the West Coast, and eventually I found myself, and you know, obviously, eventually I found these guys in Black Veil, and you know, the rest is history.
Yeah. And did you ever have that moment where you're like, I finally made it making music?
I don't think I will ever have that feeling. Like, I finally made it, I've arrived. Because, well, okay, I mean, yeah, there are those moments, definitely, especially when you're playing main stage at Download Festival, for instance,
yeah.
or Rock on the Range or something, and you just look out at the sea of people. There's like, you know, 80,000 people or whatever. And you're like, yeah, those are some moments where we're just like, oh, like, here we are. We've arrived. But no, you know, I think like the next step, you're always thinking like, well, we can be bigger. And, you know, like when we're filling arenas ourselves on tours, you know, than just playing, you know, the size rooms that we're playing now. So there's always like, we can always go the next step up. There's no ceiling, we used to like to say. So I've never really considered myself arrived, you know. I mean, there's milestones. We've hit some major milestones, but we haven't like hit the top yet. You know, it's like what I like to say. So yeah, you know, if that really answers your question, I kind of meandered there. But there's definitely some moments where we had some milestones, but you know, we're always striving to keep moving on up.
Yeah, and like you said, music was a big thing in your family. So when did you first pick up a guitar?
Probably 2 years old. You know, I was old enough to walk, I guess, and I had this little stripped down, like kind of Stratocaster knockoff that my parents just gave me just to play with as like a toy. And I remember like one they gave me. I had this little toy drum set, but my brother played drums and guitar. The drums just didn't really stick with me. You know, it was the guitar. I was always interested in the guitars, strumming the guitars. So they gave me this little kind of knocked off Strat. And it had like maybe 2 strings on it, and I would just sit in front of the TV, and I remember Jimi Hendrix coming on. It was Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock playing the Star Spangled Banner, and I would just kind of mimic that, and I think that was like the first thing I ever really learned. And then eventually I got this little like half-size guitar. It was a Chiquita travel guitar. If you've ever seen the movie Back to the Future,
yep.
Michael J. Fox plays one in the beginning, and he pulls out this tiny little guitar, and then he has this steel pick, and then this humongous amplifier behind him, and then he strums it, like, and then he gets blown across the room. But yeah, that tiny little guitar, that's the exact same guitar I had, only I had it in black, and I still have it to this day. So, but yeah, I think I got that when I was about 4 years old, and that's where I really learned how to play. And my brother actually taught me some of the first things on the guitar, and my dad. And first thing I really learned, I think, was like Crazy Train. By Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne. But yeah, Randy Rhoads, and there was this tribute album to Randy Rhoads. He died in a plane crash in the early 80s, but the tribute album I listened to constantly, and then I, you know, kind of pick away and learn that. And then I got into Metallica after that. I think And Justice for All album came out, and then I learned that from start to finish. But yeah, all on that little guitar. So yeah, to answer your question, probably 2 years old, I first picked up the guitar, and then 4 when I really started learning.
Yeah. And what about violin? Like, where'd the inspiration to pick up a violin come from?
My grandfather George, my mom's dad, he passed away in 2007, but he was a fiddle player, and he played violin, and you know, when he was growing up in school, and his dad played, and his dad, my great grandpa, bought this violin in 1907 from like a Sears catalog, and that was the violin my grandpa had. And when I would go visit him, he would pull it out from under his bed and dust it off, and then he would just saw away at it, you know. And I was just like so fascinated with that, and it was just something so different than what I was used to. You know, I was used to rock and roll music, and then here's, you know, my grandpa is like shredding on this violin, you know, and I'm like, this fiddle, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, I want to do that. And so I was like 7 years old, and I think I told my mom, I was like, I want to, you know, I think in school they're you had the opportunity to take lessons on an instrument that you were fascinated with. And I was like, I want to learn violin. And my mom was like, really? You want to learn violin? Why? Like, I just want to learn violin. It's like, okay. And so she got me a violin, and my grandpa started taking me lessons, and he says, well, I went to the symphony one time in Des Moines. He said, if you're good enough one day to play with these guys, I'll give you my violin. And by the time I was at the end of high school, I was playing that very same symphony, and it was like my first part-time job, or first job, real job, and he gave me his violin, and I have the violin to this day, and I played it on all the BlackVeil records ever since. But yeah, it was, I guess in a sense, the violin was kind of a rebellion against my rock and roll upbringing, you know, in classical music, because I got really into classical music, and I still am, and, you know, I get a lot of my inspiration for riffs and hooks and all that from classical music. So, yeah, that's where it all started. My grandpa, I owe it to him.
Yeah, and with BlackVeilBrides, like, you play a lot of violin and orchestration pieces. Where did the idea come from to incorporate that into, like, the rock sound?
Oh, I mean, long ago, you know, when I mentioned the Dreaming, I was playing it before BlackVeil. When I first started with that band, me and the singer sat down and wrote about 4 songs, re-envisioned like 4 songs he had demos to, and we did it on acoustic. I played acoustic guitar and played violin over the top of it, and you know, that was how I started with that band. I was like, oh, I want to do more of that. And when I started working with BlackVeil, you know, of course, our whole goal was to be larger than life. You know, rock band, arena rock, you know, and it's like, well, I always loved it when bands from back in the day would incorporate that, you know, I mean, going back, like Kansas, you know, Dust in the Wind, or you have like the band UFO, my wife's uncle's band, they did a lot of that. Some of their early records going back to the early 80s, late 70s, and I always just thought that was really cool and epic, and so to be able to incorporate into our sound, you know, it was something that I was able to do, and it was something I was interested in, you know, something I've always been interested in is scoring films. So, and even at that time, I saw that as an opportunity to kind of combine what I was doing, or what I was interested in, and what I was doing. So, but yeah, in We Stitch These Wounds, actually, and you're going to hear a lot of classical influences in that, not necessarily me playing the violin. I think I only played originally on Mortician's Daughter, and then a acoustic version of Knives and Pens. But you'll hear the classical influences on a lot of the guitar work that I did, that I attributed to some of the songs, and contributed, sorry, and like sometimes in interludes or whatever, you can hear like a little bit of Bach kind of influence and whatnot. So I was incorporating it right from the beginning with BlackVeil.
Yeah, and you guys have accomplished lots as BlackVeilBrides. So what are some of your proudest moments with the band?
Yeah, we have a lot of proud moments. And you know, like I mentioned, playing Download Festival main stage, or Rockin' the Range, and you know, just a sea of people. But I mean, you know, winning Golden Gods awards. I hear that they're bringing those back after the pandemic. But one Golden God in particular that Jake and I won was for Best Guitarist, and that was in 2012, I believe. And you know, that was a very special moment, and you know, that was a fan voted award, and so I mean, it just shows you just how powerful the BBB Army base is, and our fans, and just, you know, just couldn't be more grateful for them, and for that award. And I still have that up on my shelf, and I just, you know, like that was a huge achievement for me. And we were up against like a lot of our heroes, which, you know, I like think, oh man, they couldn't be too happy about that, you know, that they lost to us, you know. And I was like, oh, we're not worthy. And even that night, yeah, we're not worthy. This Wayne's World reference, Alice Cooper introduced us on stage, and we played, you know, I Wanna Rock with Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. I mean, that night itself was just completely epic, and it's still unreal to, you know, think back to that. But I mean, there's just so many milestones with this band. Those are just a couple in particular, and I mean, there's just too many to even name. But those are a couple instances. So
Yeah, and do you have a favorite show that you've played? And maybe if like there's too many shows, what about like a favorite tour?
Yeah, well, I have to say a favorite tour for me was the Avenged Sevenfold Buried Alive tour that we did in 2011. That seems so long ago now. It was, but you know, it was our first arena tour, and you know, we weren't like high up on the bill or anything, but it was just we had so much fun. We got on with those guys so well, and you know, just a lot of fun backstage hanging out with them, and just a lot of camaraderie. We just had so much fun on that one. I mean, all tours, most tours have been fun for me. I'd say probably not the least fun tours would be you know, Warped Tour, just because it's grueling. I mean, I shouldn't say that though, because we always have fun on those tours too, regardless of the fact that it's super hot and you're dirty and
Yeah.
you don't really get to shower for a couple days and you
Yeah.
just feel gross. But you know, it's definitely a grueling tour. But yeah, I mean they're all different. I always love touring Europe. And Canada for that matter, but Europe in particular because I'm a history buff, and you know, everywhere in Europe is just so it's got its own history, and you know, I like to kind of leave the tour bus and go off and explore and see these old, you know, historic sites. And I mean, history there just goes back so far, you know, compared to like in the States where we only have a couple hundred years of history, but in Europe, you know, you're going back thousands of years. And anyway, I'm just fascinated. So I always love touring Europe. And yeah, shows, I mean, Download Festival, I keep going back to that, but that's always my favorite to play. And, you know, Andy Koppel has always been really, really kind to us, really good to us. And, you know, yeah, definitely playing main stage at Download is always a high point.
Yeah, and are you missing being on the road right now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. You know, we were so excited for the start of this year and I think, I mean, it's goes without saying for pretty much everybody in the world right now, you know, and that 2020 is just like, what the hell, you know. And you know, we started this year, like we did one show in Mexico City. It was an amazing show. We were just on such a high note. We were just like, oh my god, yes, we're back and we're so excited and we're gonna conquer the world this year. Wah wah. We get back to LA and everything shut down, and it was just like a matter of time. There's like, all right, well, now we got to make an announcement, and we were just so devastated. So yeah, missing tour tremendously, but I do have to say, and this is a very positive thing for me. You know, other than my wife and I, we found a house, bought a house that we're very happy with, our dream house, you know, and but we're expecting our first child in October. And, you know, if I was on the road this year, I would be missing out on so much. And I'm very fortunate, very grateful. I mean, I should say, you know, because of coronavirus, I'm not on the road, and I actually get to be with her through the whole process, you know, the whole journey. And get to go with her to the doctor's visits and see the scans and everything. It's just been, I mean, just it's hard to describe unless you go through it, you know. And it's definitely changed me. But anyway, yeah. So I'm very grateful that I got to, you know, spend this year watching my child grow from, you know, within, and then, you know, being with my wife through all that, and then I get to be here for the birth. And I mean, I would have made sure we kind of booked the tour around when the due date was, so that I wouldn't miss it. I mean, I'm not missing that for the world, you know. But yeah, that's the only thing I have to say. I do miss being on tour, but I'm very grateful that I get to be home for, you know,
that's
what's going on in my life.
Yeah, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
And what's your favorite part about touring?
Seeing different places, you know, traveling the world, and just getting to absorb different cultures and learn a lot. And you know, I'm always up for learning new things, trying different foods, and yeah, I mean, yeah, just the travel. I mean, the traveling itself, not so much. You know, the long drives and the plane rides, not so much. But getting to these destinations and, you know, getting to just see the world and from a different perspective too. I think a lot of people their perspective. Like they never leave their hometown or whatever, and they just see what's on the news, or they, and then they get a really skewed perspective of what's going on in the world. And they might be, I'm not saying that people that don't travel are ignorant to other cultures, but it's, you just kind of get used to your surroundings, and like different cultures might seem a bit alien to you, so I like being able to absorb and learn about different cultures, and that is definitely a bonus of touring. It's getting to do that, have that opportunity.
Yeah, and you said that you like to experience the different cultures. What's like the most interesting food that you've tried?
Okay, so most interesting food. Okay, I'm gonna name 3. Haggis in Scotland, which I actually quite like. A lot of people are grossed out by that, I'm sure all my animal rights people are angry at that, but it's definitely strange, and I don't know how they came up with that, but it's interesting, and it's quite good, actually, yummy. And here's another one in Australia, and people are gonna be mad at me for this too, but I had to try it. It was on the menu, but kangaroo.
Oh boy!
I know, and I'll probably never eat it again. But I had to try it once, and it was. I have to say it was yummy too. But I feel so bad because there's
they're
kangaroos.
So cute.
I know. So never again, never ever again. And then South America, crickets. So, yep.
Interesting.
Well, in France, I mean, this isn't so it's very common there, and probably certain other places in the world too, but escargot, snail.
Yeah, I've had that.
Which actually, I've actually
it's
quite
good.
Like the way when it's prepared well. Yeah, it's actually not bad.
It's good.
It's not something I would eat every day, but every once in a while it's nice.
And what about things that you aren't missing about tour?
The long drives and the plane rides, and just not being home. Because you do. I mean, I love my home life. I love my wife, and now my growing family. And I know in the future that's going to be really hard on me, and it has been in the past. With the distance and everything, we're both really strong, and we've been really good. To remain strong through all of it, and communication's key with that. But it's hard. It's hard being away from home, and and we have animals too. You miss your animals, but it's going to be especially difficult for me in the future. Being away from my family, and so that's probably the number one. And then just the tour fatigue from the traveling, and and it's not as glamorous as people like to think. You're not in a hotel room every night. You're in this bus with like 12 other people, and it's smelly and it's dirty, and I mean I can't even imagine it right now. Right now it seems like a horror film when you watch TV and people are shaking hands, right? And you're just like, oh my god, I hope they're using sanitizer after that, or they're not wearing masks. Like, oh my god, they're all gonna get coronavirus. So to think now back to how filthy we were on the road, even when we were trying to be as clean as possible, like, oh my god. And then we're being on an airplane. It's just, wow. And no wonder, like, during meet and greets and stuff, we try to be, we can't do hugs because, people get sick. When one person is sick and then they hug us, then the rest of the tour gets sick and we have to cancel shows, and it's always a bummer. So we're like, sorry, we'd love to hug you, but no hugs. And, we'll do fist bump or something, And now it's like, well, I mean, I don't know how we're going to do meet and greets in the future. We're all going to have to be wearing gas masks and, like gloves, and it's going to be weird, this new normal. Hopefully that they'll have a vaccine figured out, and I mean we can get past this strange period in history. But anyway, sorry I kind of meandered there, but
no, that's okay. And you said your tour bus was always messy. Who was the messiest on the bus? I have to know.
I'm not gonna. And here's the saying we always use: I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus. But no, I mean, everyone can be messy. Like we all try to do as much as we can to stay tidy. I mean, there's only so much you can do, right?
Yeah.
It's like 12 people in this confined little space, and I mean, I'll speak for myself. I can get messy after a week or so in my bunk. Like in my bunk, I'll set it up. I've got all these wires and things wired up. Like I've got my computer screen flipped and to where I have like a studio. I have like my portable studio all wired up in my bunk. So after rolling around in my bunk on all those long drives, stuff gets knocked off the walls and the wires everywhere. So my bunk can get pretty messy with what I got going on in there. And so I mean, hey, I could be the messiest person, but at least it's confined into my bunk. It's not like I don't just sprawl out all over the. Yeah. So we all kind of keep to our bunk areas, and and then we'll have like a drawer that we keep our stuff in. We each have a drawer or like a cupboard or something, and we just try to respect everyone's space and try to be as tidy as possible. But it's hard. It's hard. You're all living on this thing, and it's gonna get messy.
Yeah.
And stinky.
And you guys have a show at the Whisky on August 1st. How excited are you for the show?
Super excited. I mean, at least it's something,
Yeah, exactly.
It's not gonna be it's not gonna be the same. I mean, when you play a show, you're playing in front of people, and you have that energy of the audience, and you give and take and back and forth, and we're not gonna have an audience. It's gonna be weird. I have to say, it's gonna be really hard to, get the energy to, but we're going to give it the best shot, man. The best energy that we can for a show, and give people what they want and what we want. And oh man, I mean, we're itching to play a real show anyway. I mean, it's gonna be powerful. We're really excited to do it, and like I say, it was such a bummer when tour got postponed, and we're so excited for it. So yeah, we're super excited, and to play all these songs that. Some of them I don't feel like we've ever played live, like Carolyn, and it's exciting to do these songs live and from start to finish the whole record, and it's just really excited to do it and for people to watch it. So yeah, it goes without saying, super excited.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Dave.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Where can people find you on social media?
Okay, so Instagram. My Instagram is Jinxxed for Life, and it's Jinxx, JINXXED, the number 4, and then LIFE, it's at Jinxxed for Life. And then Twitter is JinxxBBB, so JINXXBBB. And I'm not really on Facebook, so I don't go on there. But Twitter and Instagram, there you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Victoria. It's been a pleasure.